T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Right, and there we go. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing all right. I mean, I'm looking at the weather out there, and I know there's one thing I'm not doing today, and that is leaving my place because it is horrid out there. Mia, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good. It's actually quite nice here, Dan, to be honest. It's a bit clouded, but it's not awful. Not like the rain that's been coming down the last couple of days.
Oh no, the weather has said that it's going to chuck it down later, and knowing my luck, I'd get caught in the middle of it if I go out. So I'm just going to avoid that one totally because I don't like getting caught in the rain. I'm a bit of a fussy one with the weather, really, because I don't like the heat either. I mean, because sleeping in the heat is just horrid. I can't stand it. And when it's hot over here, it feels like someone's standing on your chest. It's not like going abroad. But then I don't like it when it's raining and horrible either. So call it fussy, if you will. But there we go. Right, let's get to the point and everything. I mean, I saw on your show that you're speaking about Crystal Palace and how we're going to do with that. So I'll go through that bit first, and we'll just keep that short and sweet. What tactics do you think we're going to have to use against Crystal Palace? Do you think we're going to have to change it a little bit, or do you think we're just going to stick with the same way and just go all guns blazing, basically?
I think that Postecoglou doesn't really like to change how we play. They're missing some players actually at the moment, so they don't play the most fabulous type of football, Crystal Palace, do they? But they are at home, so there is obviously that home advantage. But I think that they're going to put up it's going to be quite a challenge. It is going to be quite a challenge, but I think that we will continue to try and play exactly the same, because when we had the changes for the Fulham game, Postecoglou was going mental. He was not happy because we weren't playing in the way he wanted us to play. So yeah, personally, I just don't think he changes. I think he likes to play the same way each and every time, to be honest.
It does look that way with him, and I do think that's good. Maybe now and again with a couple of teams, I think you have to twitch a couple of little bits in there. But I do like the way he goes his way. He's got his way, and he goes for it. And a lot of other teams, they don't like it. It was like what I was talking about last night with Stel and Tom. I actually don't really understand the way that Poch does it totally. And I think that's one of our advantages at Tottenham. Not to necessarily make other teams fear us as such, but they're confused as such. Because one minute you'll see Romero up there, next minute you'll see Van der Ven up there, next minute you'll see your doggy up there with another two covering the back. Next minute you'll see Porro taking it through the middle. You just don't really know what's coming with Spurs at the moment, do you? I mean, because I must admit, when I see a bit of it, I'm quite surprised in who I see going up front and then who I see covering at the back and that. I definitely think that is a big advantage, because I think we're definitely one of the harder teams to actually suss out the way we play. What do you think?
Yeah, no, we are, because what they obviously do is take cues from each other and who's going forward and who's staying behind. So no team knows who to mark because they don't know who's going to be next going forward. So you're right, it is a hard tactic to try and figure out, and I think that's why he's been successful everywhere he's gone, Dan, because it's one of those. No, like people say, oh, but next season you'll be found out. I just don't see it, because where we're so confusing, and then if we have a rotation of, say, our front players as well, and what they can do, if we have different types of players, people are never going to know what kind of way, like who they're going to come up against. Yeah, it's the same tactics, but you're coming up against different people, so it's a different skill set. And if you don't know what skill set you're coming up against, how do you know what to do, what to train
Exactly.
for?
It's unpredictable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a kind of chaos. It's like he runs on like a I can't explain, like a organised chaos. That's the kind of
Yeah,
way that he sort of does it.
yeah, I'd agree with that. Like I said, it's unpredictable. I mean, because usually when you know your next team that you're playing and that you're obviously watching the videos, you know their style of play and everything. And a defender used to be ready for Harry Kane and Son, and that was it. That's all they really had to be ready for. And they knew that usually you take Harry Kane out, you take Tottenham out. Now, the one they definitely go for, and I said it to my wife when I was watching it the last time and that, Madison through and through. And they do. They definitely go to try and take Madison out. But again, the whole thing is just unpredictable. They don't know who they're going to have to pass the ball through the middle or whatever else next. So it's definitely not a bit confusing for the other team. So I definitely think he'll stick to the same sort of tactics. They're just unpredictable. I mean, they don't get half the time. So with the team, notice you already had to talk about that one. I think I'll definitely stick with most of how it is. I mean, for me, which I'll bring up this situation later, as I usually do, I'd leave Richarlison out if I've got the chance, because I just think the player is that bloody bad. I've got to disagree with you on the Basuma thing, because I totally get the points you made on your show about that. Yeah, okay, he's got to know when, and he's got to be able to keep his head. But we know what the refs are like these days. They give yellow cards when you don't even touch a player. So I think it's a very dangerous situation to be in. Plus, he is a box-to-box midfielder, so he's likely to get a lot of yellow cards. Now, against Palace, I think Højbjerg would do fine. I think Højbjerg shut a few people up the other day, because I'm not saying he had a great game, but he more than did his job. And I'm a defender of Højbjerg because I think he's more than good enough for the squad. Now, wouldn't be my first 11, but he's definitely more than good enough for the squad. And I feel the man gets a lot of unnecessary stick. I mean, I think Skip is significantly worse than Højbjerg. But then I find a lot of people seem to like Skip or stick up for him, you know, because he came through the ranks and everything else and that. Well, fair play to the man. I think Højbjerg's better. So I think I'd definitely play Højbjerg instead of Basuma. Because that Chelsea game, come on, we got to have our most powerful team there. The Chelsea is going to be a lot harder than Palace. Don't you think? I think you're on mute. You've muted yourself.
I muted myself because the dog's barking as well.
Yeah,
right. the kids are bothering me. The dog's barking, honestly. That's what happens when they're at home. For me, I feel like that we're going to come up against this situation again. And unless he learns his lesson and he has to prove himself, he's never going to learn. It's a bit like you do with children, right? You've got to let them fall out of a tree to learn that next time you've got to do it better, right? And don't fall out the tree, because otherwise you're never going to learn. If you protect them and bubble wrap them, it's a bit like those helicopter parents who go around their kids and they're like, because they don't want them to fall. But they're never going to learn. They're never going to learn not to fall unless you let them.
The refs are too unpredictable. We even see it against Liverpool. That first yellow card against Jota was, for me, it was not a yellow card. I mean, he barely touched him with a toe, basically. And Basuma goes and gets the yellow card for it. I mean, not Basuma, Jota, sorry, goes and gets the yellow card for it. I mean, what Basuma had to come off for the other day, for me, he should have got a 3-match ban for that, because I don't agree with no one diving. But I just want my full team against Chelsea, because Chelsea I feel is going to be significantly harder than Palace. I mean, Palace seems to be a bit all over the place at the moment. Their attack just doesn't fear me in any way. They've got their best midfielders out, and their defence is a bit shady, bar Anderson. We should definitely be winning that game 3-1, I think. And I don't think we need Basuma on the pitch to do that, because I think Højbjerg proved against Fulham the other day that he can cover that place. I'm more worried about, it's not Basuma keeping his cool, it's players around him and also the ref. And for Chelsea, it's just going to be so much of a harder game. Their midfield is very, very good. They seem to be getting their act together as well. It's not going to be an easy game. Not that any game is ever easy, but we definitely got easier ones than others. And Chelsea, we have such a poor record against them. I just feel we need Basuma for that game desperately. And I think the other change I'd make, give me half a chance, I'd go stick Johnson on the left. Or do you know what? I know a lot of people don't agree with it. I'd even give Brian Gill a chance on the left or something, because I just think Richarlison is that bad. And again, he proved it in his last game. But you still think we should be playing the full team basically and use Basuma against Palace?
Yeah, I do. I still do. I was a bit like you, and then someone said something to me, and I was like, "Do you know what? That makes sense." Like I say, sorry about the dog. I do feel like he won't learn unless he's given that opportunity. Because we had the same Romero at one point, Dan. We had Romero on 3 yellow cards. I'm sure it was when he had 3. And it was almost like, oh, he has to now learn, otherwise he's going to be in trouble. And he did. He made sure that he stayed off the yellow cards until it was reset, so he didn't get banned. So if Romero can learn, then I feel like Basuma has to learn. It's one of those things. And some of them were for him being petulant as well. It wasn't just him making bad tackles. Some of them was talking back to the ref. So he needs to learn not to do that.
Yes. He did have a habit of that. I mean, he's a fiery fella, which is...
I love him. I absolutely love him. Like, honestly, yep. I'm not against Basuma at all. I love the guy. I love his vibe. He's just a lovely guy. But he does have to learn not to backtrack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally get your point. But on this one, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one, because I feel we need him too desperately for the game against Chelsea. But everyone's got their own way of doing it. But I can totally get your point. You want your strongest team every time and that. But for me, Chelsea is just going to be so much harder. So I feel we just desperately need Basuma there.
I'm going to be honest, and I feel like Postecoglou will think how I'm thinking. I think he'll have a word with him and say, listen, boy, you've got to prove yourself now. You've got to prove to me that you can do it. Because I think Postecoglou did that when he was late. He said to him, listen, you ain't going to be late no more. That ain't going to happen. And guess what? He was never late again. He made sure that he had a word with him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being late is just definitely being rude as far as I'm concerned, like, especially if you're a player and you're meant to be there. So, yeah, but that one we're still going to have to agree to disagree on at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, next thing I'm going to go over to is that game against Fulham. I mean, we've all spoke about it. We've all got our opinion on it. But I definitely think there was 5 things that we definitely learned against Fulham. I mean, you always learn a couple of things in a few games and that. I mean, obviously, first thing we see, we're still top of the league. So far, so good is my opinion on that. I know everyone keeps having this chat about, you've got Spurs fans saying we're in a title race, Spurs fans saying we're not in a title race. I mean, for me, we're not in the title race. And for me, December and January is going to show whether we've got the ambition or not, whether we want to do it or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's subjective, Dan, like I was saying in my video, because everybody's got their own perception of what a title race is or looks like. Because you could be in 4th and you could be 3 points off of the top, or you could be 4th and be 10 points off the top. So what one is the title race? Is it the position? Is it the points? Is it how close you are to it? It's just, there's so many different versions of what it could be and how people view it. For me, I feel if we are there and thereabouts in, like, say, after January, I think that gives us the chance of us being in the mix. But are we truly challenging? No, I don't believe we're going to really challenge a Man City or a Liverpool, because I think they're the next one. So I feel like you can say we're in the mix of that contender to be up there. Yeah. But are we truly? No, in my humble opinion.
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, I suppose if you want to say title challenge or run for the title, whatever way they want to put it, you could say everybody's in it from the start of the season because everybody's in the same place.
Yeah, that's what Ange said. He said
we know teams aren't. Yeah, but
He
for
said.
me, the title race doesn't start until round about what I'd say March, April. And if you're within 6 points, then you've definitely got a shout, because we all know the 6 points can be gained very easy, or it can be a long distance to catch, one or the other. All depends on how the other team is doing. So December, I'm dreading with the 7 games. If we can just about get through December with lack of injuries, it all depends on January for me, on the transfers we're going to make. Now, again, I had this chat with Stel and Tom last night, and I totally agree with Stel on what he said, and Tom, that it is all about January. We need to make these transfers, and we need to make them fast, because our squad depth is just terrible at the end of the day. So we definitely need to make the transfers. I mean, we definitely need a centre back. I'd say we definitely need a midfield. And I could even go as far as agreeing with a couple of others and saying we need someone else who can be a bit of a playmaker up there as well, in place of Maddison. I mean, I could say sticking Kulusevski in the middle could give him a better option, because he has got creativity. It's just on the wing he doesn't get to show it, because he always just taps it to the left and uses his left foot. Whereas if he's sitting behind Son, he's got more of an open space. A lot of people saying we should get a striker. I don't think that's the priority out of the other three, because for me, Son is the striker now, and he's definitely doing the job. So if we get these transfers done in January and December goes all right, why not? We can go with the flow after then, can't we? I mean, so far, so good.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think for me, it depends on who goes out. I think if we get a Dyer out, a Lloris out, Højbjerg looks like he wants to leave anyway. He does seem like he is going to leave because he would like to. Then we need a replacement for him. We need a centre back and a replacement for him. And we are looking at wingers more than we are strikers. There is a couple of striker names in the mix, but we're more so looking at wingers. There's that Turkish guy. He looks really good. If you watch him and look at his stats, that he is a good player by the looks of things. Obviously, I don't watch him regularly enough to say 100%, but he looks good. So we are looking at more a winger position than we really are a striker position. So I think I would be shocked if we didn't get a striker, because we have got Felice, we've got Johnson who can go in the middle, and we've actually got obviously Richarlison. I know he's not the greatest, but obviously that is an option. So if anything ever happened to Sonny, we have got options to switch it up and have someone else in the middle.
Exactly.
And that's why I don't believe we're going to get a striker.
We definitely need that defender. Everybody knows that. We definitely need cover for the midfield. That goes without saying. Again, we got Bentancur coming back, but we just don't know to what standard he's going to come back. And even if he comes back at his best, it's still going to take him, I think, a significant month or two to get match fit. Because being fit on the side in the training and being match fit, they're two totally different things, aren't they? And plus, with his injury, you don't see many people come back from an ACL the same player they were. I mean, look at Van Dijk, basically, after he got scissored up by Pickford and that. For me, he's never come back the same. So what do you think the hopes on Bentancur is coming back the same Bentancur that we had? Because that would be a banging midfield then. Bentancur, Basuma and Maddison. That would be one of the best midfields in the Premiership, in my opinion.
If he comes back and he is the Bentancur we had before, Lord mercy, the other teams are going to have to pray before every game, because they are going to be elite. I'm going to say that now, because when you look at Bentancur, how he is on the ball, how good he is on the ball, how he can take the ball, he turns with the ball, he takes men on, and he did score some goals. I think he is brilliant. I watched him in real life when I went to the game, and I was just like, wow, this guy, man, this guy. Then you've got Basuma, who, again, he's rapid, he's strong, he's quick, he takes on his man. Then you've got Twinkle Toes Maddison. Like, that as our midfield is immense, absolutely immense, if he comes back to being the player that he was.
You just can't go wrong with that, can you? In my opinion.
No.
I mean, something that David Clark has just said here.
Sorry.
Like, that's all right. With January transfers are not going to help us in January, because we will be missing Son, Basuma and Sarr. I totally get that, the heart out of our team. They obviously will help us, I think, because we will have cover for them. And if I've worked it out properly,
It's
We're
only a
probably
few
only going to.
games.
It's only going to be 2 to 3 games that we
And
miss
that's
them
if
out
they get
for.
to the finals. They might not even make the
Exactly.
final. So
So
that's
exactly. So it's going to be round about 3 games that we miss each player for. Yes, it's not going to be good because the games we got coming up at that time are going to be bloody hard. But we definitely need that bit of cover there, without a doubt. Because if we go back to having Højbjerg and Skip as a team in the middle,
it's like the Chuckle Brothers. I call them the Chuckle Brothers. To me, to you,
you
isn't
could
it?
blatantly, and we'd definitely be in trouble. So without doubt, we definitely at least need one centre mid. So going on to the second thing, I think we definitely learned in that game against Fulham, and I think we've definitely learned it in the past. Well, since bar the first game of the season, Vicario, quality keeper we've got there. So far, so good, and I don't see him getting any worse for the rest of the season. He's got a good, solid defence in front of him, especially 2 centre backs with Van der Ven and Romero, and he has proved that he is a very, very good ball stopper. I mean, that save he made against Fulham, where he managed to just push it off when it must have been about 6 yards from him when it got booted. That was a shocking save for me, because 9 out of 10 that would have gone in the back of the net, and you could never ever have blamed the goalkeeper for that. Never in a million years. But somehow he managed to get to it. I think he controls his box well. I feel safe when he comes out to catch the ball, whereas when Lores used to do it, he was so eccentric. He was a good shot stopper in his day, good keeper in his day, but one thing the man is eccentric, and I don't think that's good for a goalkeeper. You need a rational goalkeeper. You need one who can keep his head. And I feel a lot of people wanted Vicario to fail just to have a dig at Levy, like we've said before. But I think we have definitely learnt now, whether he was the cheaper one or not, we definitely hit the jackpot there, don't you think?
100%. He absolutely brilliant. What a keeper. When you look at the mistakes, Dan, that other keepers are making and the goals that they're letting in that are really, you think to yourself, what are you doing? I think when you look at Vicario, he has been absolutely spot on. He really has been spot on. And I wanted him to do well. I said when he was shaking at the beginning, listen, we need to give the man time. He will come good. I've got a good feeling he'll be all right. And I was proven correct, because my gut feeling was telling me he was nervous because it was at the start. He didn't know anybody. It was obviously a bit of when you go into a new situation, it can be difficult. So he settled so well quickly, and what a keeper he has become. His stats are top, pretty much up on the top level in the Prem so far. So that just shows you how good and instrumental he has been for Tottenham. Quickly back on the David Clark thing, I've just sort of saying, don't forget other teams are also going to lose players for January as well.
Yeah, they are, without a doubt. Go for it. So, on the aspect of Vicario, no one, I don't think, can fault the keeper. I mean, I really do love the way he just looks cool all the time. He looks calm. He looks calculated. He's never panicking like you see with some of the other keepers. I mean, all right, against Fulham, for me, he made 2 weird ones. But when you've got it that you want your goalkeeper to pass it out short, there is going to be mistakes. One way or another, mistakes will happen. And one of them nearly did go wrong. The one which I definitely found a bit strange with the fella is when he came completely out of his box. Okay, fine. We do have goalkeepers do that. But when he went for that header, and that nearly screwed us up big time, I must admit, I did sort of think, what are you actually doing, mate? Why are you coming out and trying to do this header in the middle of the pitch, which totally diverted off to the right and nearly set him up? But the man got back quick enough and he covered it at the end of the day. It didn't go totally tits up. That one could have gone very, very wrong. So with the price we got him for and the quality he's been, for me, you're going to have to put him in the top 5 signings of the season. And I can't see why anyone would say otherwise. I mean, Maddison goes without saying, he's the signing of the season for everybody. For the price we got him for, 40 mil, and then we got 10 mil back for Winks. So 30 mil we got Maddison for. You can't complain with that. You can't go wrong with that. Why no other team went for him, I don't understand, but you don't see me complaining. Not a chance. So yeah, Vicario, he's the price of him, I don't even think he was 13 million if I remember right. So, and how good he's been, that's one of the top signings of the season for me. And it's not very often you get a goalkeeper who's actually good at that cheap either. And a lot of people did think he was a cheap option and was going to do it wrong. And like I said earlier, I just feel too many Spurs supporters wanted him to fail just to have another dig at Levy. I am not a Levy in person. Don't like the fella, want him out. But I am not going to want a player to fail just so I can have a dig at the man. And a lot of Spurs supporters wanted that to happen. And I just can't understand why. Why would you want your man to fail just so you can have a dig at someone you don't like? It doesn't make sense. Because you're basically asking your team to fail just so you can prove another point on Daniel Levy. We don't need no one to fail to prove a point on Daniel Levy. We've got enough points on Daniel Levy. I mean, God, we've got enough points on him that he's got hundreds and hundreds of points we can dig him for. But I just cannot understand why anyone would want their team to fail just to have a dig at Levy. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, does it, Mia?
No, I never understand that attitude, Dan. I've never really, I'm not on board with that. I heard people say when it was in the summer when we lost Conte, I hope we get relegated. Why would you say that? Like, just to prove a point? Why would you want to get relegated? I never understand that attitude. I never understand that mentality. That's just not me. I want my team to do well at every single time. Like, I never at any point want my team to do bad. I've just not got it in me. Like, I just haven't got it in me to want that. Or for any of my team to do good, like any of the players either. I want all my players to do well. I want my whole team to do well. That's the aim of the game, isn't it?
Exactly. And also, like Michael's just said here, all Spurs signings have been good. And you can say they all have been signings of the season. Yeah, I can definitely say out of the top 5 signings of the season, you could put Maddison and Vicario in there.
Definitely.
And I don't know, maybe Van der Ven could squeeze his way in there as well because you
and Van der Ven, yeah.
Yeah, he has not been bad. I mean, I must admit, his positioning for me leaves a little bit to be desired, but he will learn it. Exactly. Yeah. No one's perfect. And I do feel Romero covers him very good.
For his age, when you look, he looks more of a man defender than he does a boy. Do you know what I mean? Like, he defends more like a man. He does do very well when you think BDV, how young he actually is.
He's not a small fella, is he?
No.
Do you know what one of the maddest things about him, though? One of his weakest spots is actually heading the ball. But I suppose
if you look at his stats, Dan, if you look at his stats, he's actually done the headers. He actually has headed the ball away.
Yeah, of course he has, but it's meant to be one of his weaker points. And I think this is where I'd say 95% of people just can't help being stereotypical at times, me definitely being one of them. Someone 6'4", 6'3", whatever he is, you think, yeah, he can head the ball. Like Peter Crouch, for example, he couldn't head the ball come love nor money. Not that he even had to jump for it, but just because you're 6'3" or 6'7", whatever, doesn't necessarily mean you can head the ball. But Van der Ven does get himself in a couple of situations. The reason I don't feel that it gets noticed so much is because of his pace. And he does. The man is fast. I mean, he's as fast as any striker up there from what I can see. And he does well with covering his mistakes. And I think that's why a lot of people might not necessarily notice so much that he does actually get himself out of position a few times. I mean, against Liverpool, we did it about 4 or 5 times. And I still think if Salah would have been the pace he used to be, he would have been in a bit of trouble. But we all make mistakes. I think that he will get better for it. Like you said, he's only young. But that's only the only thing I can really fault him on, really, that he does get out of position a bit. But either way, another one, you can't fault him. 47 million, very good defender we got there. and also a very good captain for the future, quite possibly. Right, on the next thing I think we definitely learned, and again, I think we've learned this over the period of the start. Captains, and I will say captains because it is basically 3 captains. I know it's 1 main captain with Son and 2 vice captains, but I'm definitely starting to see what a few people said on here and on other pages that I didn't really sort of believe it at first. That Ange's almost made a captain for each part of the pitch. And yeah, it looks like he actually has, and it's definitely working. Now, for me, Son was not my idea of captain. I've always thought Son's maybe a little bit too soft to be a captain. I know he does it for his country and that, but that's totally different to doing it in the Premier League. Personally, I thought he'd be a bit soft. All right, he might not be the loudest one, the most aggressive one out there. I mean, I've always looked on the captain as a Roy Keane, a Patrick Vieira, a Pirello. But again, old man's up to that one. He shut me up on that one. He's done good as a captain. And then Maddison definitely looks good, definitely chirps the team up and everything. And Romero, ever since he's been made vice captain, it's like it added the responsibility to him that he needed. I wasn't keen on getting Van de Ven next to Romero because I've looked on it like I see him at, how we had seen him at Spurs and how I see him at Argentina. I thought he'd need more of a big brother next to him, more of an older player to give him a smack round the ear when he needs it and tell him to slow down. But again, that's another one where I've got to put my hands up to that. And just, do you know what? I got that one wrong as well. Because him and Romero, they seem to have linked up lovely. And Romero's as solid as he has been. It's like he's a total different player in some aspects. So what do you think on the choice of the captains? How do you think they worked out?
I was like you. I was a bit doubtful of Sonny, and I'll hold my hands up and say I was completely wrong about that one.
He just doesn't seem captain material when you first look at him, does he?
But everybody really likes him, and I think that helps, I think everybody really does like him, and he takes it very seriously. It's a very much a respect thing for him. You can tell that he takes that on board, that he feels like he's now earned the respect of the rest of the team. He has to, he has to take that responsibility, and he takes those things very, very seriously. So I think that he has done absolutely fantastic. Then when you've got do you know the 3 little things that people like personality traits, it's like 3 different personality traits we've got. So we've got the calm one. So Sonny, very calm, very much like the calm one of the group. Then you've got Maddison.
The calm, fella.
Yeah, the calm. Then you've got the cheeky chappy who's got a bit more about him, a bit more of the chat. He's the one that on the night out, he's going to be chatting up the girls, yeah. He's going to be your wingman. He'll be a great wingman because, he's got the chat, he's got the patter. So then you think, yeah, he's that. And then you've got the hot-headed, kind of a bit more of a kind of passionate one. Like Romero's a very passionate guy. So you've got the passion. Yeah. And so altogether, it's a bit like when you used to watch old cartoons. Like when all the heart, desire, passion comes together and it makes up the best superhero. Like Captain Planet, it was a bit like that with water, fire. It's like, all those ingredients just work really well.
I can't say I've looked on it like that. And now you say that, do you know what? It definitely makes sense. I mean, you can definitely see Maddison being the shirty little one at the club, knows he's good or knows he's good looking, whatever way you want to put it at the club. Trying it on with everyone, tries it on with the wrong person, upsets them. Son would be the one who comes in and tries to calm it down. And if it don't calm down, Romero would be your mate who'd back you up and do what happens after. So, yeah, do you know what? That does make sense. I mean, he's covered each area, but he has put 3 very different types of players. And, yeah, do you know what? I'll go with that. I haven't thought of it that way. So, yeah, fair play. I'll go with that one. It actually does make a bit of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Daniel's right. Power Rangers, Captain Planet, whatever you have, whatever kind of cartoon they always or children program, they have like a different element and they all come together and make something strong because you need all of those elements in order to make that something much stronger. Individually, they're strong, but they're better together.
Yeah, and Yeah, I must admit, I didn't look on it like that, but they do seem to have pulled it off. They did, yeah, it just seems to be working. It seems to be clicking. So again, you're not going to see me complaining. Right, and I think the next thing I brought this up earlier, the game against Fulham, the 5 things we've learned. I mean, a few of them we can say we already learned basically over the past 9 games. For me, Højbjerg proved that he deserves that bit more credit. Because no, he didn't have no special game. I mean, in that whole game, for me, Son wasn't man of the match. For me, Romero was the one who stood out as nigh on perfect, apart from slowing the game down once or twice. You couldn't fault him in any means or manner. I didn't think no one else was particularly at their very best. Like Maddison, I didn't think he was at his very best, but when he has his moments, they count. Son, I felt he stayed back a few times when he should have been forward, and there was nowhere to pass him to at times. But again, he had an all right game. But for me, Romero was definitely man of the match. But going on the Højbjerg thing, I'm saying, he covered that ground fine. You weren't worried that he was there. He did more than what he had to do. He had more than a respectable game. And again, I think he's just proved himself that he is more than good enough to be a club player. And I just don't understand why he gets so much stick. Because if anything, over the past 3 years, he's been one of our most reliable players. And I'm not saying he's been one of the best players on the pitch. I mean, no one was good last season, except Harry Kane. Apart from that, no one was good. The whole team was bloody useless. But over the past 3 years, one player you could pick for that team every time and he will be there is Højbjerg. In that aspect, he is reliable. And he will at least give it his all every game. And I feel he'll have more respectable games than he will poor games. I feel he deserves more credit because there's so many people that say he shouldn't even be at the club. He's not good enough to be even a club player. And for me, I can't work that one out. What do you think?
I completely disagree with you. I'm going to actually disagree. I feel Højbjerg is Fulham level. He was obviously linked with Fulham, and I think Fulham is his level. He's good, right? He's okay. He's a bit like, I compare him to vanilla ice cream. If vanilla ice cream is in your freezer for 6 months, right, and you've got no other ice cream to eat, you'll eat the vanilla ice cream because you're just like, I just want to eat some ice cream. And it doesn't really hit the spot the same. It's like, yeah, it's all right. It's a bit meh. And I feel Højbjerg is a bit of a meh player. He was good in a defensive system. He looked a lot better when he had Bentancur beside him because Bentancur is class. So he made Højbjerg look better. When we had Skip and Højbjerg together, they're too similar. Like, that drove me bonkers, them two playing together. But for me, he does he does a job. He's okay. But when we go from a Basuma to a Højbjerg, the level drops so much. We need someone who's going to come in and be a little bit higher up level wise when we want to change it, because we don't want to just change it and do a job. We want to change it. If we have to change it and bring on subs, we want to carry on and continue with the Ange style. And that's what drove Ange nuts when he was going mad at them in that second half, because that was such a drop off. Now, Højbjerg was already on the pitch. I'm not blaming Højbjerg for that at all. But what I'm trying to say,
I think he had quite a solid game overall. I think he had more than a respectable game.
I said that he had an okay game. I'm not criticising him at all. But what I'm trying to say to you, Dan, is that when we bring on subs, we want them to be closer to the level that we already had on the pitch. And Højbjerg is nowhere near the Basuma or Bentancur or Sarr level. He's just not.
I agree. It is a big drop. And quickly, Dave, mate, leave it out. It's just a different opinion. And that's all it is. We got our own opinions. So
everyone's allowed their opinion. Like, I respect everybody's opinions. I respect that obviously you don't agree with me, Dan. That's fine, man. I'm not going to just sit here and be
each to their own. We all see football through two different eyes.
Exactly, because
through our
people
own separate
don't
eyes.
like Kulu. People criticise Kulu. Some people won't criticise Kulu. Some people will. I'm in the middle of Kulu. But people criticise either way. They can be either for him or against him. That's because it's subjective. Everything's subjective, David, and I'm subjectively looking at it, and that is my subjective opinion.
Well, with what you said, I'll make you right on it. I mean, we all want to do what City can do, and that's take one player off and bring one player on of the same quality or just a very minor drop.
I'm not saying a minor drop. I'm not even saying. I'm saying a big. The drop is too big. You want someone in between.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying we want to be like City, who can do that, and it's only a minor drop, or it's somebody of the same quality. That's what we all want. But in that one, I think we can all wish there, because there's only one team that can really do that, and that is Man City. I mean, Liverpool can't even do that. Arsenal can't do it. I don't know.
When you look at the bench for Liverpool, their striking options are immense, man, and they don't complain. They switch it up and switch it around. They have got good options, but like I say, it's not about having that like Man City level where they've got the same level, but it's about having somebody who is better than Hotspur to come on and be able to do what Ange wants, because you can't just have slow and steady. Ange wants quick, fast, advancing. So Hotspur don't fit that profile. So we want somebody who fits the profile of what Ange wants. Yeah, they might have different aspects of their game that they're good at that are not exactly not far from Hotspur, but they just need to be quicker and better at them. That's what I would say.
I'll agree with you there. He's not really for the system, and it's perfect. It's 100% true what Ben's just said here. Hotspur isn't good enough technically to play in this system, but he's bloody good backup, and he has the mentality to get better for the team. My whole point of Hotspur is that people go on that he's not even good enough for the club. I am not saying a first 11, but for me, he's good enough at this moment in time to be a club player. Now, if we sell him, we obviously need to get someone better, because there's no point selling him to bring in someone of the same category, or we need to bring in someone who's more adapted to the system. But at the moment, for me, I just feel Hotspur gets too much stick. And it's almost like someone else said to me, it's almost like he's a bit of a scapegoat in some ways.
I don't think he's a scapegoat, because when you look at Richie, when you look at Kulu, they get just as much stick, man. I don't think he's a scapegoat at all. I just don't think he's good enough.
Come on. Richie's stick is deserved.
But I just think that even that's deserved in your opinion. So the stick he gets from me is my opinion, and he is Fulham level. He isn't Tottenham level. I'm sorry, but he came from Southampton, having been sold by Bayern Munich. They didn't want him, so he wasn't good enough. But he went to Southampton. He wasn't top of his game player. He's good for the system. He was good for Conte. He was good for Jose's system. In our system, he isn't good enough. He's just not. We can get a much better player in that system, for that system. 100% we can.
Yeah, there is better players out there to get. But can we get them in January? That is what we're going to have to wait and see, isn't it?
Well, if he wants to go, he has to have a replacement.
Exactly. But for me, if we didn't get rid of Hotspur in January and we kept him till the end of the season as a bit of backup, as long as we go and get another midfielder as well, me personally, I'll be happy with it. I mean, Michael's just said here, Liverpool have the best options when it comes to up front, but they will struggle with injuries elsewhere on the pitch. Yeah, I'll totally agree with that one. I mean, for me, Liverpool, Liverpool this year up front, I think are the most dangerous team in the Premiership.
Of course.
And 100%. They can take off a player up front and put off a player and put on a player that's the same caliber, basically. Apart from Salah, that up front they are deadly. The rest of their team, it's a bit of a drop for them. Same as it is for Arsenal. I mean, Chelsea, I don't think we can really rate about it at the moment, because they're just a bit of a mess down to, what is it? They've still got about 13 injuries. So it's going to take a bit more time before we can tell what the drop to the defender, to the sub will be like then. But out of that whole Premiership, really, there is only one team that can make a sub and bring on a sub of the same standard of who is already on the pitch, and that is Man City. But I do agree with you. We have got to up the class, and we do need people who are more technically for the weight.
Don't forget,
till the end of the season, Højbjerg's good enough for me.
Don't forget, Postecoglou likes players that are younger as well, so he can find a little gem that could be like what Brighton do. As soon as they lose a player, they bring in a really good new player. You can find those players. Like Postecoglou said, now everybody knows about these little gems. You have to work smarter. And I think we're now putting in place something to work smarter. We're putting in the pieces to work smarter to be able to get these players. And Darryl was spot on. Fans want to rebuild, but we don't want to sell players. It's mad. Why don't you want to sell players that are not good enough for the team?
No, with that
I never understand.
No, with that one, I disagree with that one to an extent, but I'll agree with it to an extent because I had this argument so many times before it started when people were still telling me give Ndombele a chance. For me, 5 years he's been bloody awful. He should have been gone 3 years ago. And Dyer, how he's even still at that club, I will never know. But I'm not saying don't sell him. What I'm saying is he's good enough for backup until the end of the season for me. If we can't sell it, if we can sell him in January, but we can't get someone better, there's no point on selling him just to bring in someone of the same caliber. So we have to be able to sell him and buy someone straight away, basically, who is more technically gifted for the style that Ange wants, or who is better. Because I just don't see the point on selling someone to bring in basically someone exactly the same. To me, that's just a waste of time.
Yeah, I agree.
But players have got to go. We have got to have a rebuild. But it don't take 5 minutes. And no. I suppose it's one we'll have to agree to disagree on again. Yeah, at the end of the season, I'd say he's got to go. Or in January, if we can get someone better, then yeah. But unless there's someone better there to get, for me, he's good enough to cover that place for the meantime. And like Ben says here, Højbjerg is the most Marmite player I've possibly seen at the club. Some people think he's top tier and some think he's awful. Yeah, I don't think he's top tier. I think he's a good enough player for the subs bench. But I totally agree with what you said, Mia. For first team standards, he is definitely more of a sort of Fulham, Brighton, Palace sort of player, Wolves sort of player for first team standards. But the point I keep making is I think he's good enough to cover that spot at the moment. And he actually done all right against Fulham. I mean, yeah, I think he covered that position well. But either way.
He did all right. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't slagging him off at all because I actually gave him his props. I said, yeah, he did okay. So
right. And going to the fifth and final point that I make that I think we learned from that team. And I must admit, I was very happy with this when Ange spoke about it. He wants better. He was not impressed with that second half at all. Now, the only defence I can give the team in that is we did end up having to bring on some of the lower caliber players, shall we say. But he was not impressed. He wanted more of the first half. Now, the first half was good. I thought we should have been 3 or 4-0 up. I feel our finishing wasn't at its greatest because up front seems to be our most unstable part at the moment. If anything, our most stable bit is the bit that's been the most unstable bit for the past 5 years even, is the defence. And the midfield seems more than fine, but up front, it just seems there's just something not right there. And for me, one of the main issues there is with Richarlison, but I'll go on to that one later. But Ange wants more. He wants better. And he blatantly said it on the TV. I was happy that he did that. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like that we allowed them onto us, like last 15 minutes or so. Once we've made those further changes, we just lost everything. That first half, we had three free kicks in 10 minutes, and we were wasteful. We were really wasteful. We didn't have our first shot on target for 25 minutes. That at home, that isn't good enough. I think we were all over them, but we were wasteful. I just don't think we did enough. But the second half, we dropped off massively once we made those extra changes. So I think that he's well within his rights to be annoyed about it, because I was too. And we need to make sure, like I say, that we continue when we make changes, so we're able to make changes to be able to keep that level up where we're not conceding a lot of possession. Because the second half, by the time the second half was finished, the possession stats were actually pretty equal. Where the first half, the stats were we had about over 67% of the ball. So at home,
yeah,
having nearly they had like 48% of possession by the end of it, I think it was. That's not good enough at home. That is absolutely not good enough.
We
Ridiculous.
dropped terribly. We really did. And I think at one point it even got to the game where people was actually getting a bit nervous, because I know I was. Because you were just sort of looking at it and waiting that Spursy moment to happen. And again, yes, all good. So far, so good. I can't complain about nothing. But one thing I will say, whether I come across negative or not, I don't care. I'm a realist. Being a Spurs supporter, I'm 42, for over 35 years now. I can't help but look over my shoulder. I can't help it. Spurs have done that to me. And at times, if they would have had a better strike force, we could have been in a little bit of trouble there. But it all went sweet at the end of the day, so we got what we wanted out of it. It was a good 3 points, but I definitely like the fact that Ange wants better, and he wasn't happy with it. Now, what Darryl says here, Dan, I want Ange to build his team squad, not a squad from 3 different managers. I'm totally agreeing, but I think there's worse players that we need to get rid of over Højbjerg. Dyer has got to go, without a doubt. I mean, if I could, I'd get rid of Royale and bring another one in. I mean, Lo Celso I don't know, he's not even getting, I mean, I think he got, 5 minutes on the pitch the other day, and when he came on, I thought he looked bloody awful. And I think there's worse players to get rid of. But again, if we can sell him in January and get a better player in January, I'm all for letting him go. But we got to get a better player for it. But I do love the way that Ange blatantly said on the TV, I expected better. We should have done A, B, C, D, basically, and put it quite blatantly on there. I don't think he was a happy man at the end of the game. I mean, yeah, he got the 3 points. Everyone's got to be satisfied with that. I think that's the word. I think he was satisfied. But he was not happy. And that's good. You want the manager to expect better. And yeah, that second half was pretty abysmal as far as I'm concerned. So you want your manager to want you to do better. Because if the manager's happy with that, yes, he was satisfied with a win. But if you've got a manager that's happy with how that second half went, you're not going to go far, are you?
No, not at all. He's got standards, you know what I'm saying? Like, he knows this is just the beginning, Dan. This isn't us fully firing on Ange ball. Like, we've got a lot to learn. The players have got a lot to learn. It's just the start, to be honest with you. So he's going to expect this to happen, and he's going to be unhappy about it because he wants more. So I'm absolutely on board with that. I want high standards from my manager, but not in the way that Conte behaved. But Ange does it in a completely different way. He does it in such a different way, Ange, where he comes across like he wants what's best for the team. He wants what's best for everybody. He doesn't come across like arrogant, like it's all about him, you know. And I think that's the difference with him having standards and the way he puts it across as well.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And one thing you can also see about the fella, he's not scared about using, let's say, the iron boot or whatever, about just blatantly kicking the player out because he ain't good enough. I mean, Dyer, I personally don't think we're going to see Dyer on the pitch again. And in January, he's one of them ones that, whether we can sell him or not, I personally feel he's got to go, because he'll only have 6 months left on his contract, same as Lloris, same as others. And if we can't sell them, we're still going to have to pay their wages, aren't we? So my opinion is, do you know what? if he ain't going nowhere in January, even if we tell him that you ain't got a chance of getting in the team, and he still says he don't want to go nowhere, I say we just go, right, there's the money for your contract, get out, go away. Because we're going to have to pay it anyway. So we might as well just kick the players out then that are just going to be no use to the team. When it comes to Lores, though, on that one, I was one of the first ones to say that, yeah, he's another one, 6 months left, he needs to go. But from what I've heard from a few things, he's actually meant to be doing, like, behind the lines as such, a really good job with Vicario. He's meant to actually be helping him out in a lot of ways and showing him a few things. I won't necessarily say training him, but being very supportive of him. So if Lores is actually doing that, I mean, we don't actually see what goes on behind the lines. We only hear through the press and everything else and that. If Lores is actually doing that, then do you know what? Let him stay till the end of the season and let him keep doing his training, whatever he's doing to help Vicario. But with other certain players, if we can't sell them, which I just can't see being able to sell some of them, we just pay them off and get rid of them and then focus on what we need. Do you agree with that?
With Lloris, I believe that it was Vicario who come out and said that he's really helping him. I think it was Vicario actually came out himself and said that behind the scenes he's really helping me out. So yeah, big up to him for that. Obviously, you can't fault him. He's been a loyal servant to us. He's been with us a long time.
Yes.
And you know, I've always said that about Lloris. People remember in the end part, so it's like recent bias where when you look back in his past, he's done a really good job for us. He was a very good keeper. Probably one of the best that I've seen, I would say, considering we had Walker when I was young, Ian Walker. So, yeah, I think that he has been pretty good. And so I would keep him, like you say. With the ripping up of the contracts, normally it's about a agreement. So the player has to agree to have his contract ripped up. You can't do it unless they want to. That's your
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
You can't.
With a contract, as long as you give them the full money, you can rip it and kick them out. As long as you pull the full money.
I don't know.
Same
I'm
as
not
if someone
sure the
is.
rules.
Yes, you can. 100%. Yes, you can. What they usually try and do is say, look,
Negotiate.
we'll give you 3/4 of your money if you disappear. And the player can say no chance. It's the same as a job. A job can be, as long as they pay your contract off, they can rip it up basically. And they can do it in football. It has been done. And the player doesn't have to agree to it.
I don't think so. I'm sure the player has to agree because
if
you're under a contract, under law, you can't unlawfully just rip up a contract, surely. That's not how contracts work.
Yeah, as long as you pay off the full money.
Well, I'd have to look into the law.
Say it's another 2 million that he would earn in the next 6 months. Just an example. As long as we stick that 2 million on the table and say, there you go, mate. You can rip the contract. Arsenal did it. They had to do it with Ozil. He said, I ain't going nowhere. He said, I ain't doing nothing. So what they did was pay him off totally and kick him out. You can do it. As long as you pay that contract in whole, you can get them out. But it's if you try and make a deal and they don't accept the deal and whatever, then you can't get them out. But as long as you pay that contract off, you can see the back of the player. As far as I know, I'd say I'm 90% sure of that. If you can show me otherwise, go for gold. And then I'll stand back and say wrong. But I'm 90% sure of that. You can, as long as you pay it off, the whole lot, you can rip it and say goodbye. Right, what John Fitzpatrick says here. For me, the fan base is getting carried away, far too carried away. Great start, but we say we're in a title race is madness. We are 4 to 5 players away, in my opinion. As Ange said, we pick the players. That's basically what we said at the start. I'm agreeing with that.
Can I quickly come back to you on that? I've just checked. You can't. The only way you can rip a player's contract is if it's by mutual agreement, the contract has ended. You can't just rip up a contract. That's I've just.
They did it with Ozil though, because he refused.
No, but
he must have go.
He must have agreed. It's terminated by mutual agreement. The player can terminate the contract with sporting clause. The club or player can. They can't. Basically, there's got to be a clause for them to be able to do it. I think if they can they can't just rip it up because that's
just
not
the news. the news I saw with the other ones, it was all over the news and everything. That Özil said, I ain't going nowhere unless you pay me my contract out, basically. And he still didn't want to go, but they paid the contract out.
So then he agreed to it because he said he'd only do it if they agreed. So he agreed because they paid his contract out. So he agreed to it.
Okay, fair enough. I'll go with that if that's how you say it is. But as far as I always knew,
Yeah.
as long as you paid someone's contract in a whole and paid the money out, then they haven't got a leg to stand on. But if you've read that and that's how you say it is, then so be it.
Yeah, that's what I think David Clark said the same, that you can't, it's illegal in any form of employment. You can't just pay out a contract unless there's some sort of clause in the contract. You can't
or a
just
solid
do that.
reason, isn't it?
Or a solid reason. You have to have misconduct. You have to, even with footballers, if they break any terms of their contract, you can terminate it. But you can't just terminate it for absolutely no reason without their permission to do so, because that's illegal. Employment laws apply to footballers just as they do everybody else, I would have thought.
Okay, I'll go for that one if that's how you say it. I always thought that if you paid the contract off, they wouldn't have a leg to stand on. But let's just say you learn a new thing every day then. I'll accept that one. Well, I'd say that's definitely 5 things we definitely learned in that Fulham game. And I think they're 5 pretty solid things we learned there. I mean, I was going through a few of the points that I always go through Spurs news now, everything else and that, see what's going on, see what a few people are saying and that. Oh, I think Mia's disappeared there. I'm sure she'll put herself back in. Yeah, one thing I definitely noticed was what Pedro Porro has said. There we go. And Mia is back. Clicked on the wrong button. Yeah, what, like I did the other day and cancelled myself out and left you on the screen.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, don't worry about it. Right, what I'm saying is on a few of the things that I've been reading on the internet, Pedro Porro has gone and made a statement, and it's a bit of a bold statement at that as well. He says that Tottenham's Christian Romero is the best defender in the world.
Well, I mean,
I know other players have said, Messi said it, and one thing that definitely, I must admit, I had to laugh at a couple of nights ago, and it was with Stell and Will on Tottenham away. And he made a very, very bold statement on there, stating that in the past 365 days, Romero has been better than Saliba. And I must admit, when he said that, I was one of the first ones to stand there and just think, what are you looking at, mate? And I know too many people love to go by not tactic, what's the word for it? I forgot the word now. Statistics, that's the one. And too many people do love to go by statistics. But a lot of the statistics we see is only about 10 of them. He went through the whole lot and pulled out over 150 statistics. Over 150. And then weighed up the 2 players. When it all got weighed up and added up, Romero has been more solid than Saliba in the past 365 days. And what he did in this show was said, right, anybody come on here, make me believe otherwise. And with everybody that went on there, not one person could make it otherwise. I mean, I think one of the comments on there, which was one of the most amusing ones, was said, well, Saliba has been better. Because look at where Arsenal were. Look at what Arsenal have done. He won more games. No, that weren't the statement. That weren't the question. The question was Saliba and Romero, saying that Romero's played better than Saliba. It wasn't whether Arsenal have played better than Spurs. So where the other fella stated, well, he's won more games, so he's had a better season. Will then turned around and said to him, okay, so you're telling me that Nketiah and Jesus had a better personal season than Kane? No, they didn't. Arsenal did. But them two didn't have a better season than Kane as a player as such. And the fella had to back down, basically. I think he gave himself a bit too much rope and hung himself. But yeah, with all the statistics on there, Romero, over the past 365 days, has played significantly better than Saliba. So anyone who wants to see that, go on Tottenham away. It's one of, I think it's one of the past 5 games on there. 5 videos on there. And it will state on there that Romero's played better than Saliba. Make me believe otherwise. Yes, it's 6 hours long, but if you watch 20 minutes of it, you'll get the whole picture of it. I was pretty shocked by that, I must admit. So with all these statements coming out, like you say, Messi's made it, Porro is saying it, other players that have played with him. You don't get #1 defender of the year in Italy playing at Atalanta, which they're not bad over there, but they're definitely not great. I'd say they're like the Brighton of Serie A. You don't get that statement for nothing, especially in Italy, because Italy is the most defensive league you will ever get. It is the most counter-attacking defensive league you ever get. It's a league that I've always followed. I mean, in the Milan is my second team. That's a bit of a heavy statement, though, isn't it? Saying that Romero has been better than Saliba. And saying that Romero is the best defender in the world. I mean, that one, I think, takes it a step too far. But also this season, I don't think there's been a better defender out there. Up until about, I think, a week ago, Anderson was the only one who might have had better statistics, but that fell to pieces when they lost 4-0. So quite possibly this season, Romero's probably been the best defender in the league. What do you think on the whole thing, basically, on everything I just said?
Do you know what? I admire Will's ability to obviously get these stats up. Honestly, blows my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
I said
over 150 stats.
I said to you before we started, sometimes looking at all these numbers and stats on the screen really hurts my head. It actually gets me I get this like anxiety feeling looking at them all because I can't.
It's confusing,
focus.
Isn't it?
It confuses me. I think, like I said to you earlier, I'm sure it's like a bit of an ADHD thing because I can't concentrate on that because it really, like, I can't explain it, but I don't like it. I can look at simple stats, charts, stuff like that. I'm fine with, but too many complicated stats make my head hurt. Me personally, I go on stats and eye test because I feel stats don't show you something on the pitch. So I'll give you a good example. Our best, one of our best assisters last season was Perisic. Now, would you say that just because that he was one of our best players? Absolutely not. But you can try and use that statistic to try and prove that so because the numbers are there. Just so for me, just because the numbers are there, it's got to meet. For me, it's got to match up with an eye test and what they're doing on the pitch to get these numbers. If that makes sense, you know. It's a bit
but
like
with Perisic, you would have to state that he was the best crosser of the ball.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not denying that. He's the best crosser of the ball, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say to you, if you look at the stats in isolation, if you were just looking at stats and you didn't look at the game, you would say, oh, he must be one of their best players, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So that's where I feel like that we get a kind of obsessed. When we were young, these stats weren't a thing, Dan. We used to look at simple stats, but all these complicated stats, we didn't have those. You know, none of these were a thing. We just used our eyes, and that would tell us what we wanted to know. I can go, my opinion on someone is look at the stats and go, oh, okay, I was pretty bang on with that. But it doesn't mean that if I was wrong, I'm going to try and find stats to prove it, like to try and prove my point, because that's what you can do. You can look at stats and try and adjust them to maybe prove your point, where I like to use the eye test and the stats to sort of mix it up and decide. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree.
And that's what I would say.
You got to use both, because one thing I think we can all definitely say through what I said earlier is that your eyes can lie. Why? Because we all see football through our own 2 eyes. And what I see in a game, you might not see in the game. And what you see in the game, I might not see in the game. So eyes can also be a liar as well, because it doesn't necessarily mean I'm right or you're wrong, or you're right or I'm wrong. We've just noticed different things in a game because everybody does. But these stats that he came out with, I mean, usually the stats that you see in that is like out of 10 stats and whatever, and that can just lie all day long. I mean, if you actually put Jesus and Richarlison next together on the 10 attacking stats, Richarlison's had a better season than Jesus so far. He's got more goals and assists, and it just sounds comical, but that's what those 10 stats say. But when you get 150 stats there, now we're going deep. Now we're going a bit different. And that can actually tell you a bit more of a truth, I think. But obviously, I think it also does count with your eyes as well. But on the stat side of it, I mean, what Dal was saying here, you can't look through sports by numbers. It's madness. I'm sorry. Yes, you can. And that is what they do now. That is what they do. It's what Liverpool were the main ones who started all that off. And what they now do is basically put 5 players together, and then I bet you they go through more than 150 stats. They go through every stat you can do. And then they'll pick off the main points that they want for that player. And then they'll put the 2 players who have the best stats together on it to match what they want. And then they'll do the rest of it through the eye. Whether we like it or not, football has become just like American football and baseball and other sports. It is now a very, very stat game. I mean, they've even bought, I can't even remember, they've even bought other special machinery in to assess a player and everything else. I mean, God, even down to the way you play FIFA now and that, like, it shows the power of the shot, the angle of the shot and everything else. So whether we like it or not, stats are now a major thing of football. But they can also be deceiving if you don't put the right amount of stats on there. But on Romero, with the statement that he's the best player in the world, the best defender in the world, I think that's a bit too deep. What do you think? And also how he's been this season.
Yeah, I do think it's probably a bit much. I would say the best in the world. I think that's a bit hyperbolic kind of statement to make. I think that he has been very good this season so far. I think that it has to continue for me to make a bold statement about him being the best. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it'd have to be for a longer period, because listen, we've seen defenders over our years, right? They've been absolutely outstanding, excellent, especially for Tottenham too. When you look at someone like Ledley King, love that guy. We've got Toby and Jan, fantastic pairing. I think that we have to give it a little bit more time to see how it develops, but I definitely think he's up there in the Prem. Absolutely. He is very, very good, but I think that, yeah, it's a bit too statistically over 9 games. I don't think it's enough to tell you. That's not enough statistics for me. If you're going to do a statistic-based analysis, it has to be over a longevity of a longevity, because you can't just have it over, because you could say, oh, well, within the first 2 games, this player did this. Oh, but it's only been 2 games. Like, over 30, over 30 plus games, what did they do? That's for me at the end of the season. Go on the statistics, absolutely, 100% use them. But I think it's just in this amount of games, it's I don't think it's really you can't really judge, I would say.
No, it's only 9 games in. So, but in that aspect, you can only go by what you've played and who you've played against. So statistically, Romero has been the best defender in the league, and Maddison has been the best playmaker in the league. And if I'm going to be honest, in the past 9 games, I don't really think you can argue that. I mean, statistically, Vicario's also been the best goalkeeper in the league. And we know Vicario is not the best keeper in the league. Alisson and Ederson are just both better goalkeepers, full stop. But statistically, they are 3 of the best players in the Premiership at this moment. But like you said, it's only 9 games, isn't it? But you can only go by what you've done so far.
Yeah, but do you know what, right? The way I see it, I sound like such an old person when I say this, but back in the day, Dan, we didn't do this. We didn't, like, no. we didn't talk about it 9 games in, right? You weren't down the pub 9 games in, talking to your mates and saying, oh, well, this player must be the best in the world. Like, no, would like people with a level head and like shoulders that are going to go, listen, it's been 9 games, man. We're playing well. Like you say, you can only play what's in front of you. It's all good. Because we didn't have the statistics then, we couldn't sit there with our little book of statistics. We'd just go on what we saw, the few statistics that we did see, and that was that. Like, it just made it,
Exactly.
I think they've made it complicated. And I understand when they do the scouting now, they do look at stats, but they also send a scout out to look. Like, they send scouts to watch them. If it was all about statistics, that wouldn't exist anymore. They wouldn't send somebody to go and watch a player, would they? They'd just go purely on statistics. But they send scouts out to watch them for a reason, right? Because they need to see them on the eye.
They send the scouts out now after they've done the statistics
to watch them,
to try and find the 5 best players that match the style of play they want. And then they now send the scouts out to watch those 5 players. Whereas the way it used to be purely done is exactly how you said, is right. Scout, I want a defender. Go and find me a defender.
But what I'm saying is,
it's just not like that anymore.
Yeah,
I'm totally agreeing with what you're saying.
But yeah, of course. But now what they do, they use the statistics and go and look at the player. But they still look at the player. They still have to go and watch them, right? They can't just assume because their statistics are good that they're going to be good. Like a good example is a player we're looking at, Garassi, right? His statistics so far out of this world. He has scored some absolute bangers. He's scoring for fun, right? But in the previous seasons, his statistics weren't that good. But if you're going to go on these games, yeah, he's been very good. But will he be able to do it and continue doing it? Who knows? But that's the point, isn't it? You can use a small amount of statistics to go, oh my God, this player is the one. But then if you look back and go, oh, did he do it in the other part of the other seasons? No, you know. So you can easily use a short amount of statistics, but you've got to look at a player overall. You've got to look at him for a longer amount of time. Statistics do come into it, but you also have to watch them to see what they do.
Yeah, and if we can sit there and say statistically, whoever has been the best striker in the world for the past year. But that's one season.
That's right.
You start judging a player like that, because I think the phrase world class is just used.
Way too much.
Just a bit. I mean, I'll go to that bit in a minute. But yeah, okay, statistically, he's been good this season, whatever. I suppose you can judge it more on a younger player who's only had his first or second season. But when you've had a player who's been there 5 years, and statistically, last season he was the best on the planet, but the 4 seasons before then, he's been shady as. It can almost lie to you in a way, can't it?
Yeah, of course.
Because what you need in a football player, more than anything, apart from them being able to play football, obviously, is consistency. And that is one thing we haven't had at Spurs for a long time, bar Harry Kane. I mean, you can't even say Son's been consistent over the years.
No,
he's been good, very good. But he goes through his phases where 6 games, he'll absolutely smash it. And then 4 games, he'll sort of die down a little bit. And then another 6 games, he'll perk up again. Over the years, he's been a very up and down sort of player. So I wouldn't class him as the most consistent player. But he's been extremely good. I would never have put him on the world-class bit. Very, very, very good player. But for me, when you talk about world class, you're talking about someone like Harry Kane. You're talking about someone like Messi. You're talking about someone like Ronaldo. Well, not so much now, but then you can even say Haaland as a striker is world class for what he does. But then you can also say Harry Kane is a better player overall than Haaland, because he is. Overall,
all-round player, yeah, all-round. Harry Kane has got something very special, quite unique, a bit Teddy Sheringham-esque, where he's got the intelligence as well.
Exactly
where
that.
Haaland is more of a out-and-out, get the ball to him and he'll score you a goal kind of player. He hasn't got the amount of intelligence that what Harry Kane has got. So I think that's more of an overall. Harry Kane's a well-rounded player. Where
he's a
Haaland-
complete striker, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's complete. And what you said with Teddy Sheringham, you basically took the words out of my mouth there. Because he's not such a quick player, he has to almost be, I mean, he's not slow, Kane, but he's definitely not fast. He has to be that sort of 2 steps, 3 steps ahead. I mean, Teddy Sheringham, I mean, me and you could probably outrun him when he was at his peak. I mean, that man was just slow.
It was.
But he was always there. He was always
Yep.
3 steps ahead of everybody. And
That's
they
it.
also seem to be the players that last longer as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they've got the mentality for it.
Even
Whereas
if you-
ones that rely on their speed, once their speed goes,
That's it.
they're
When
gone.
you look at even someone like David Beckham, he wasn't the fastest, but boy was he smart and intelligent, and the way he could cross, mate. You could like we were younger, he just absolute top notch.
Mhm.
Loved David Beckham, man. Like he was one of the ones I watched a lot because I like him. Obviously, he was cute to look at. So when I was younger, I used to follow him a lot. And I watched a lot of Man United games, so I used to be able to watch him ping those balls, boy, those crosses, man, absolutely out of this world. And he wasn't fast at all. David Beckham's absolutely not fast at all.
I mean, look at Rooney. Rooney on his day was quick. He was never the fastest, but
No,
I think with Rooney, but Rooney had a quick sprint on him. He could get to his top speed quickly, but he wasn't the fastest. But because Rooney also had a very strong mentality for the game, even when he lost the bit of pace he did have, he was still more than capable of coming back and being an attacking midfielder, whatever else. That's why he lasted that bit longer. The ones who purely rely on pace, once the pace is gone, it's gone.
Michael
And then
Owen,
the play,
for
there you
instance,
go.
yeah.
Perfect example. And then there's many others you can go through with it as well. But yeah, with what I said at the start, Romero as the best defender in the world, no, not yet. And it's like what you said, down the pub, you'll be debating with your mates and you say, well, at the moment, Romero's quality, he's probably the best in the league at the moment. And then the next thing you would say is, but at the end of the season, we shall see.
That's right.
So the statement that he's the best defender in the world, I think that's a bit much. Maybe he's got the potential to go and do it and everything. Let's see, because he is a quality defender. But best in the world at this moment, not for me. Right, next point I want to get to here, yeah.
But he's definitely the best. He's definitely the best looking in our team, though. Got to love it, Romero.
Okay, I can't say I quite look at him like that, but whatever.
He's world class in looks. I like me a bit of Romero.
Okay, fair play to you. I can't say I think of him in that way, but either way, whatever turns you on at the end of the day, fair play to you. Now, a few people are going to look at me here and think what I'm going to say here and just think, like, what are you talking about? One thing I've noticed with Maddison is he actually loses the ball quite a lot. He does. He actually loses the ball quite a lot and has to even try and get it back himself or someone covers him. And usually Basuma does a good job of covering that. But he does actually lose the ball a lot. But why? Why? Because he takes the risks. And God, at last, we've got a player who does. Because if you don't take the risks, you don't take the chances, you're not going to get it, are you?
No, it's a risk and reward.
You've got to take your chance, isn't it?
It's risk and reward, Dan. Like at the end of the day, without taking that risk, there might not be a reward, right? So you have to. And I'm fed up with players who want to just play it safe. I don't want players who want to play it safe, and neither does Ange. Ange doesn't like safe players. Like I said, he kind of likes organised chaos. He likes loads of players in the box. Yes. He likes that. So he wants us to take those risks because he has said, if you make a mistake, that's on me because I want you to play this way. I want you to take those risks. I want you to continue playing out from the back. Even if you make a mistake, I want you to continue doing that because he wants us to take those risks. So we need more players who want to take those risks. Basuma does. Basuma takes those risks. He takes players on. He won't, he's not fearful. And playing without fear is so nice to see. It's lovely to see our players playing without that fear because that's what you want. You want them to take those risks.
And exactly what Daryl's just said here. You don't mind losing the ball. in other teams, you're as long as you're trying to win. And we haven't had practically anyone in that team, bar Kane maybe, I wouldn't have even said Bentancur, who was willing to take a risk. Maybe Bentancur a bit, but he wasn't one who'd take the biggest risks as such. And I get it as a defensive midfielder. That is more of one player you want. All right, mate, don't take the risks. Get the ball, get rid of it. Do what you got to do. But on the pitch, you need them players, that playmaker who's willing to lose the ball if you don't get it right. But he spots the pass over there. It's a long pass. Okay, maybe only 40% chance I'll get it, but I'm going to take it. All right, it can go wrong, but it can go bloody right as well. If you don't take the chances, you're not going to get nowhere. And that blatantly showed with Conte. We had no one there willing to take a chance. Not that we had many that was even capable, but we were sort of like lost, weren't we? And now that we got Maddison back on there, we got Maddison on there where we never replaced Eriksen. We've now got someone who can pass the ball, who's got a bloody good eye for the ball, and is also willing to take the risk, like Eriksen used to. Now, he was nowhere near as quick as Maddison, but Eriksen was always willing to take a risk with a pass, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think actually I would say that Eriksen didn't take on a player as much as Mads does. I think Maddison takes a player on more.
Yeah.
And
Eriksen's
that's why
never been quick.
No, and I think that's why he takes that bit more of a risk, in fact, more than Eriksen, because he takes his man on. And if he loses the ball, like you say, he's got someone to cover him, and we're in their half, so it doesn't really matter too much. We won't allow them to break. When you look, I looked at a tactical analysis of what Ange likes to do. He likes to keep the ball in their half, and what we'll do is make sure we've got men around so we do not allow them to come at us quick. And yeah, we've let them a couple of times, we have done that in games, but we're still learning. But that's how Ange likes to play, to make sure that everybody is going to be getting that ball back quickly. So we lose it in their half, but we get it back quickly, and that has happened. They had the ball. The 2 goals that we got on Monday were because they had the ball, we won it back. We won that ball back and scored. So that's how Ange likes to play. He likes to play it like that. And as we go along, the players are going to learn to do that better. And at the moment, they're not at their top range for it because it's only the beginning, which is understandable.
They're still learning it. And
they're still learning.
They've adapted to it pretty well, pretty quick, haven't they?
Yeah, no, they've adapted very, very well done. I'm not criticising at all, but I'm just saying that we've still got more to come with that. If this is just the beginning of it, wait until they're absolutely on point with it. You watch how much we win that ball back, man. When we're just going to be bang, bang, bang on them to make sure that we win it back in their half. And that's how we score, because we're so quick in getting it back, they get baffled. They're like, shit, we've lost the ball. And that's where we take advantage, because that's what we did twice to score those goals.
Yep. Got the ball back early, got it in there and scored the goal. And yeah, I think we can all just say, thank God that we got a player that can do that. We got a player that is more than willing to do that. Because like we said, when you've just got a team that's just playing it safe, apart from it being bloody boring, you just don't get, the chances just don't come up, basically. But yeah, so we're 100% together on the Maddison side. Okay, next point I'll go to. This is it's stuff I've just been checking up over the past night, basically. Son has now scored 7. Now, for me, at the start of the season, I mean, last season he had an abysmal season as far as I'm concerned, especially by his standards, yeah? Okay, there's people saying he might have had that injury, whatever else and that. Whether it was the injury, whether it was the style of play, whether it was whatever, just like the rest of the team, bar Kane and bar Bentancur, until he got injured, he had a terrible season by his standards. I'm a firm believer that Son is finished as a winger. I think he's lost that little bit of pace. Not much, but he's lost a bit of pace. I've never thought he's a great crosser of the ball. His passing, I'd say very average. But one thing that man can do is shoot with both feet. All right, his heading leaves a lot to be desired, but who cares when the ball's at your feet? He can score with his left foot. He can score with his right foot. He can score either side of the box, in the box.
For me now, Son is an out-and-out striker. He's not a winger anymore. I don't think. What do you think on it?
Yeah, I'm going to agree and say he definitely is very good as a striker. As a winger, I think he did get quite a few assists when he was with Kane. I think that him and Kane obviously had the top goal scoring assist stats. So I don't think he's a bad crosser of the ball. I just think that he's better when he's because he's dangerous, right? You don't know what foot. The problem is marking him because you don't know what foot he's going to go on. So it's so difficult to mark him because you think you try.
Whereas Kulusevski, you know he's going to tap it to the left and take it from there. He's predictable.
That's the thing. Where Sonny's unpredictable, that's where he gets those goals. If you watch, there was a video of him and his 150 goals that he scored. Oh my! Some of those goals, man, out of this world. The way he just whips it in outside the box, like you say, in the box, he is phenomenal. And when it comes to striking the ball, he is absolutely brilliant. So I think that he is such a good player to have as a striker because he is so both-footed. And I think they looked and said, it's literally 50-50 with his feet as well. He literally does not have a dominant foot, which is very, very rare. Normally you have a slight dominant where it'd be 60-40, but he hasn't. He's literally
most people
down
don't
the
even
middle.
have that. Most people have like a 90-10 or an 80-20 sort of thing.
Yeah, no, if they're both footed, they normally, the percentage, even when they're both footed, they still have a dominant foot, but he don't, which makes him so difficult to mark. So difficult to stop him, and we've seen him. Like I say, those goals that he scored have absolutely been mad. Like he scored some absolute bangers. So I think as a striker, he's brilliant. And Ange likes the ball being played more on the floor than he does in the air anyway. Although we have got Vinicius who can do, he's more of an aerial threat than what Son is, and we have got that if we need it, if we want it. So we have got that, but we haven't got anyone to really whip the ball into somebody who wants a header anyway. Nobody who's that good apart from Porro. Porro's probably the best one, I would say, passing the ball.
Or even Maddison.
Madders,
cross. But we don't want Madders up there to do the cross. You want Madders doing like the through ball or the long ball from the centre.
That's what I'm saying. But when it comes to, we want Madders doing that. So I would say out of the others, it would be Porro. Porro's got a very good cross in it.
Perisic was our best crosser of the ball.
He was.
And he's gone now.
When you look at Porro, I think he did a pass against Fulham that was just on point. I'm sure it's the one that he did.
I know what bit you mean. He was behind the halfway line and he put it straight over to the feet. Yeah. I know what one you're on about.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So he can do that. So,
I wouldn't argue at times sticking here. I mean, he's another one who shut me up, and I have to admit this one as well. So that's 3 now. But I did not want him as a right back because I thought he was terrible as a right back last year. And I just didn't see how his attacking mentality, he could actually get better as a defender. For me, I was saying stick him up on the right. And at times, I would still say stick him up on the right because you're going to get a lot more passes and crosses out of him than Kulusevski, I think. And he's also got a bit of creativity and willing to take a chance as well. But as a right back, he's all right. He gets run past a couple of times and that. But as a whole, as a right back, he has improved tenfold, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
He really, really has. So I'll agree with that. But I think there's a couple of games where I'd like to take the risk with him and stick him up on the right wing. See what you can get out of him there. But going back on the Son thing, I've never said I think Son is a world-class player. I think he's a very, very good player. But one thing I will say he's world-class at is his finishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there's many out there that can finish like he can with both feet.
No,
I mean, I don't even think Haaland can do that. Not as clean as Son can with both feet.
That's what I'm saying.
One as good as the other.
Because he's both-footed and so equally, there's not many players in the world like that, I think you'll find. I don't know any other striker who's so equally footed. I don't think there is any. I can't think of any.
No, I mean Kane could score with his left foot and that, but it definitely weren't his strongest
Weren't
foot. You
equal.
could see that a
Oh,
mile off,
no,
but
not
he
at
could
all.
do it. But Son is literally 50-50 per foot. He has literally got what he's got on his left, he's got on his right. And with that, he's a world-class finisher. Just not
Yeah,
quite
absolutely.
a world-class player as a whole. So we've got no problem there with striker, I don't think. And yeah, the backup ain't great for it. But for me, Son is our out-and-out striker now. I don't want to see him go on the left. I want to see him stay on the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
100%.
the last thing I'm going to go to, and I know everyone talks about it. Look, for me, this fella's got to go. The sooner the better. Because I think if we hang on to him till the end of the season, he's going to be another Ndombele where you just can't get rid of him. Because I don't see him getting any better. I really don't. I think he's controllable, he's terrible. But the only thing the man can do is head the ball. I'll give him that. And he's done that a couple of times in defence. But when the ball's clearly coming to him, and he all of a sudden turns his back to try and control it with the back of his shoulder, as far as I'm concerned, he's got issues. I mean, he had a clear shot on goal. I get what he tried to do. He tried to put it in the bottom right-hand corner. But he didn't even get it on bloody target. And he could have put it anywhere else in that bloody goal. He had a clear open chance. And he screwed it up. And then the other one where he came in from the angle. All right, wouldn't have been the easiest one to do it at, but a lot of people would have at least got the shot on target. He put it nearly 20 yards above the bloody crossbar. Nearly, I mean, how was it? Stell said it yesterday. He nearly hit the bloody cockerel when he kicked it. I was one of the ones who said, look, give him one more chance up front because he'll have Maddison behind him. And Maddison can set up a goal for anybody. Look, as far as I'm concerned, I think Richarlison is that poor. He couldn't score in a house with red doors, if you get what I'm saying. I mean,
yes.
It's only 12:30, so I don't want to put things too blatant, yeah? But he just could not... the man, I just think he's useless. I don't even think he's Premier League standard. If we get an offer of 10, 15 million for him in January, I'd get my wife to drive him over there myself. I just think he is that poor. He's a liability. But again, at the moment, the only reason he's been playing is because we've had injuries. I mean, if we want to be technical about this man, yeah? What do other people say? Context, everything else, yeah? 60 to 65 million, if I remember, he cost, yeah? About that, wasn't it? 60, 65?
Yeah. Joe, I don't think it's 60. I think that was with add-on, so I don't know if it's quite as much.
But
yeah,
it could add on
around
to
that.
60, yeah? So let's just say 60 for the thing. He scored 4 goals. That's basically 15 million a bloody goal we've paid for him in over a season. All right, he's got an assist or 2. Not many. How anybody can say that we need to keep this player at Spurs and defend him, I just can't see how. I mean, I don't know, call me Richie phobic if you want. I just do not rate this player in any means or manner. What do you think we got to do with him?
So for me, I think the last few games he's had a slightly better game. I'm not going to lie. I think that he holds the ball up, he presses, but that's still not good enough, right? He needs to give that end product. And I've always been a fan of Richie. I've always wanted him to come good. I was hoping he would come good. He needs to relax himself. He's just too tense when it comes to getting a goal. You could just see he just needs to relax.
Yeah.
But he's, like you say, his touch, etc. I do get it, and he does need to produce more. If it was me, I think that personally I'd get rid of him in January if we could, but I don't think we're going to. I think it's going to be a summer thing. If I'm completely honest, I think we're going to bring another striker in and get rid of Richie, because we do need someone who's going to have the output. It needs to be. They need to provide more and do more, because if we want, when you look at Andrew's team in Scotland when he played at Celtic, then you saw that actually, yes, a big proportion of the numbers came from a striker, but there was actually the percentage wise, it was like 60-40. 60% of the goals came from elsewhere. Now we need Richie to be providing. So one of those people that need to be doing that is going to have to be somebody else.
I mean, the way I see it is that everybody's saying Højbjerg's got to go because he's not good enough, and we got to get rid of him in January. Then how anybody can even try and say to me, if Højbjerg's got to go, but Richarlison keep him, to me that's contradicting it. Because Richarlison, he's worse in his position than what Højbjerg is.
The problem we've got, Dan, is that it's not really it's about who. I personally would want him to go in January, but I don't think we're going to be able to. Højbjerg wants to go, so that's the difference, right? If he wants to go, it's easier to obviously make, if we can get a replacement, to sell him because he wants to go. So with Richarlison, it's a bit more of a tricky situation. I feel like that they're just two different situations, so not really comparable. So that's probably why. I'm not saying I want Richie to go and Højbjerg to go and Richie to stay. I'm just saying the availability of Richie going is less likely.
Yeah, I can get why, but for me, the sooner the better, because otherwise it'll end up being another Ndombele. But there we go. I'm going to call that one quits. Mia, what are you doing with your shows and your programs and everything else you're doing at the moment? Where you're doing it, what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm over at Spurs Between the Lines. If you like what I've got to say, please go over and give me a subscribe because it does really help with the old algorithms, etc., to have the subscribe account. Yeah, I do videos, I do previews, reviews. I get other people want to have their say as well. I do members shows, so if you're a member of my channel, you can come on and have your say, which is also really nice to hear from other people and what their opinions are. So getting everybody sort of involved too, which is nice. Like I say, I do all different kind of. I try and mix it up a little bit. So when it's like the breaks, I try and think of other things outside the box to sort of talk about as well. Because it's hard, isn't it? Sometimes, but I do transfers as well. I do transfer news, so I do short videos normally, and they come out about 8 o'clock AM in UK time, so you get your information nice and early about who we're looking at. So yeah, I do kind of, like I say, a combination of different kind of videos, to be honest.
Okay, all good. So everybody, please give Mia a like and subscribe, and a like and subscribe will be here, much appreciated. Thanks for coming on the show, Mia. Always fun as usual. And I hope everybody has a good day. See you later.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.